The NHL has released their 2025-2026 schedule. We'll talk about the changes and how everything impacts the Islanders. All that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. And we have got a lot to discuss on today's show. The schedule is out. We know who the Islanders are playing, where, and when. We'll talk about the impact of the schedule, what's different about it, and how it'll affect the team this season. Plus, we dig into the mailbag as promised. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. And we will continue our player-by-player scouting report on the Islanders draft picks with the overlooked second-round pick, Daniil Prokhorov. Let's start with the schedule. It did come out on Wednesday, and I got to say that this is an interesting schedule. Let's start with this. Most importantly, well, not most importantly, but maybe the most fun. Cal Clutterbuck was great in the schedule release video as an intern. I laughed. I enjoyed it. Clutter clearly not taking himself too seriously and really enjoying what he did. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So the schedule is out, and there are some changes, and there are some things that I like, and obviously some things that I like less. One thing that I like, and I know it's a mixed bag, is that home games, evening home games, are going to be 7 o'clock instead of 7:30 this year. And look, to me, I get it. For families, people with kids who have school or people who have work the next day, there's an advantage to the 7 o'clock start. For me, when I have to do a podcast and can't start it until after the game, it is obviously easier when it's earlier. If the game ends half an hour earlier, that gives me more time and flexibility to get my work done. Obviously, for people who work in this city or who are braving traffic to get to the arena, 7 o'clock is a little bit tougher than 7:30 as far as getting there in time, trying to eat something, and then watching the games. So it's a mixed bag. It works better for me. I understand for some people, not so much. For some people, it will. But I like the change, but I understand it could go either way. Out of the 41 home games, and the home opener, by the way, will be on the 11th against the Washington Capitals, 11th of October. But 13 of the home games are afternoon games, 5 of them at 1 p.m. We all know how much the Islanders historically have struggled in matinees. Now, look, I hope that changes. Obviously, if there's more roster turnaround, that makes it better, but we'll see whether or not the Islanders can perform better in matinees. Historically, they have not ideally done that. The very first game of the year will be on the road, a divisional matchup against Pittsburgh. That's on October 9th. And it may be, depending on how things go, I think it is likely to be the NHL debut of Matthew Schaefer, and in which case he'll face Sidney Crosby in game 1, again, assuming both of them are healthy. But that's kind of fun. And then the home opener, he'll see Alex Ovechkin. So that's another interesting matchup. We already knew, because of the Olympics, that there would be a lot more condensed schedules, a lot more back-to-backs. The Islanders have 15 of them. 15 back-to-backs this year. And we're going to talk more about this next week, but it will even make who the backup goalie is more important, because you can't wear down your starting goalie. That's why they signed David Rittich this offseason as insurance as to whether or not Semyon Varlamov will be able to return and be that backup goalie that the team needs. We'll see. Noah Dobson going to be there not until the end of the season. He will face the Islanders at UBS April 12th, the next to the last game of the year. The Islanders will visit Montreal on February 26th. So that'll be the first time they face Noah Dobson, and Brock Nelson makes his Long Island return December 4th. So that'll be interesting. The Islanders have one 7-game homestand from late November to early December, but they have two 7-game road trips, November 8th to 20th. Now, the first two games are against the Rangers and the Devils, so they don't need to, take a plane or even it's a short road trip, but then they head out west after that. And then the second 7-game road trip is in January. Nashville, Minnesota, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle. That is going to be the big road trip. 4 games against the Rangers, 2 each at Madison Square Garden and at the UBS Arena. So that is always exciting. And 10 of the last 12 games, 10 of the last 12 games will be at home for the New York Islanders. And I like that. I think that if they're still in the playoff hunt at that point, having all those late home games certainly can work to their advantage. Again, if they're still in the competition. And I still view this coming season as more of a transition year. I think if they're in the playoff hunt, that's a bonus. But we'll see how it all plays out. A lot of late home games this year. And look, it could cut both ways. Because if the team is out of the playoffs and not being very competitive, there could be a lot of empty seats there late in the season. If they are still competitive for the playoffs, there could be a lot of excitement and obviously home ice advantage. Now, one other thing, the Islanders will be playing on New Year's Day this year, which is a little bit unusual, without a doubt, for the Islanders. It is actually a home game against the Utah Mammoth, and that'll be the first time that the team known as the Mammoth will actually be, at UBS Arena. Last year, of course, they were the Utah Hockey Club, and that's a 3:00 in the afternoon game. So overall, I think this is a pretty good schedule for the New York Islanders. There are obstacles like any year. Those back-to-backs are going to be important for this team. And those 2 long road trips are going to be important for this team. Hopefully they can navigate the schedule successfully, but I like overall the schedule, and I am really looking forward. Hockey is coming. Training camp is less than 2 months away. So gotta look forward to that, and we will keep our show going all year round throughout the rest of the offseason, bringing you the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings, and getting you ready for the upcoming season. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We're going to dig into the mailbag. You guys have been great sending in some questions. We'll do more mailbags throughout the offseason, so keep them coming, please. Plus, we'll continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders draft picks with Daniil Prokhorov. People are overlooking this guy. We'll tell you why you shouldn't. We have all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to show time, and you could save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Ever wonder what your view will look like before you purchase the tickets? The app shows you a panoramic view, so there's no surprises. And if you're tired of endlessly scrolling through trying to find the best deal, Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. That is a great feature. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, it's mailbag time, and we're having fun with this. I want to thank everybody for your questions. And let's start with James, who did ask this question a while ago. But again, I try to save a whole bunch of mailbag questions. So, James, thank you for this one. It's about Patrick Waugh. Do you think Patrick Waugh will have the guts to take Anthony Duclair out of the lineup this year if he's not playing well, or possibly not even have him on the roster to start if he's outplayed in training camp? After what he said last year and some of the pushback he's got from it, that worries me. I'm worried that he's going to feel obligated to play him regardless of his performance. In my opinion, we have some darn good prospect wingers who possibly could be more beneficial to the team's success. But will Waugh be fair and give someone else a chance ahead of Duclair if, in fact, they do earn it? Well, first of all, James, thank you for the question. It's a fair one. It's not an easy one to necessarily answer, but I guess we kind of have to base it on our knowledge of Patrick Waugh and how he handles things. And in my mind, I think the worst case scenario would be maybe Anthony Duclair gets one little extra chance, like a tie goes to the Duke because he's an established player. I do not think that the Islanders and Waugh would necessarily give him endless chances. I think that Patrick Waugh is a guy who's not afraid to make tough decisions. And I think that if necessary, he will indeed bench Anthony Duclair, or even if necessary in coordination with Mathew Barzal, send him to, put him on waivers if need be. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see, Waugh and Duclair still have to meet and talk. They haven't spoken about what happened at the end of last season, but I believe Patrick Waugh does have the backbone to do what he needs to do if a benching is necessary. Now we have questions from Frankie in Massapequa. And here's a question from Frankie and Chris. What do you think of the Sharks hiring Lane Lambert as head coach? How do you think he'll perform? And that's the first of two questions. I think Lane Lambert, first of all, San Jose, I really think that it's going to be a challenge over there. Got to correct it. He's the coach of the Seattle Kraken, not the San Jose Sharks. So I think it'll be a challenge in Seattle for Lane Lambert. The roster is got some young talent, but they were not a winning team. He's got to make changes there. I don't think that Lane Lambert was in a great situation on Long Island after being an assistant coach for so long under Barry Trotz and then having to become the head guy for the same group of players. I give Lane Lambert a fighting chance to be successful in Seattle. Second question is this. We've all seen the highlights. What are your thoughts on Maxim Shabanov? Will he be the real deal? It is very difficult to say about players from the KHL, how they adjust to life in the NHL, how quickly they make the adjustment. Size is definitely an issue. You have to take that into consideration. He is not a big player, but he was very successful in the KHL. I think he has potential. The question is how quickly. And it's been less than 50-50 for guys coming from the KHL, making it in the NHL. I think Maxim Siplikov had a successful rookie season, but remember, yes, it was a successful season, but we're talking about, 10 goals and 35 points in 77 games. So Siplikov was not moving the needle substantially. He didn't come to the NHL and score 30 goals. That's not to say he can't do that in the future. So I think with Shabanov, if he can replicate the numbers that Siplikov had last year, this year, that would be a successful first season. And I think he does have a good chance of being a successful NHL player. The next question comes from Thomas in Queens. With Mathew Barzal getting injured on a regular basis, do you see Matthew Darche moving on from him if it continues? I don't think that's imminent. Now, there were rumors out there that the Utah Mammoth requested Mathew Barzal in a trade if they were going to give up the 4th overall pick in the draft for the Islanders to get back in there and draft James Higgins. And the Islanders said no. They, the quote was, "We like Higgins, but we don't like him that much," but maybe not that much. I'm paraphrasing. Look, Mathew Barzal has definitely missed time due to injury. It has, 30 games last year, 58 games 2 years ago. It's been, an up and down kind of a thing in 2 of the last 3 years. I don't think necessarily that I think it would take more than one more injury for the Islanders to say, you know what, the guy's hurt an awful lot. Let's move on. So, yeah, if the injuries start to add up, it is possible. And I think you also have to take into consideration this. It's a situation where Mathew Barzal has a no-trade clause, and he is the backbone. He is the most talented offensive player as of right now on this team. I don't think they're going to move him anytime soon, but yeah, he does indeed have to stay healthy. Next one is from Christopher in the Bronx, and here's what he has to say. Why is there so much age restriction just to sign with the Islanders? If we want to get younger, faster, and more skilled, like you keep saying repeatedly, why not have our prospects enter training camp and give them a taste of the regular season? Christopher, it's a fair question. Here's the deal. First of all, for example, Matthew Schaefer, he's not 18 yet. He's not even an adult. Has to turn 18 to sign a contract. The restriction right now, and they're working on possibly changing it, is in the AHL, where you have to be at least 19 and in some cases 20 to play in the AHL. You could play in juniors, you could play in college before then, but you can't play in the A. But with the NHL, here's the bottom line. It's just a question of size and maturity. When you're 18 or 19 years old, you are not as physically mature. You haven't put on as much muscle as you're going to have as a professional athlete at 22, 24, 28. You are not, you're taking a big jump in the caliber of players you're playing against. If anybody, for example, played a sport, a competitive sport growing up in, let's say, middle school and then high school and then maybe even college, if you were good enough to do that. Each time, you may be really good as a senior in high school. And then you get to college and you're a freshman. You're the youngest, you're the smallest. The players you're playing against are faster, they're bigger, they're stronger. It's just one of those things where 95%, maybe more, of 18 and 19-year-old kids are not physically and mentally ready to play in the NHL. And if they do, what you don't want to have happen is you ruin their confidence by having them be overmatched. When you go from, I'll give you a hockey example. When you're in juniors and you're a good skater, you could skate with the puck, fake out 2 or 3 guys, go end to end and score. And let's say a move like that would work 50% of the time. You try that same move in the AHL, maybe it works 25, 30% of the time. In the NHL, maybe 10% of the time. And making that adjustment, going into the corner and battling an 18-year-old junior player is not the same as going into the corner with Matt Martin or Cal Clutterbuck or Casey Cizikas. Those guys are just bigger, faster, stronger, more experienced. It takes time for most players to bulk up physically, learn mentally, and adjust to playing against bigger, faster, stronger guys. So it's not an age restriction. If you're 18, you can play for the Islanders, but it's a maturity and readiness situation. So that's the analysis right there. Thank you, everybody, for the mailbag questions. Keep them coming. We'll do more mailbags throughout the offseason. We've got more to get to on today's show. Daniil Prokhorov, we'll talk about the Islanders' second-round pick. We'll scout him, tell you his strengths and weaknesses, and what he projects to in the NHL, plus a Hall of Famer who may be the Islanders' all-time best forward is our Islanders' birthday of the day. We've got that and more coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. We continue our look at the Islanders 2025 draft class. We are going player by player, and I've had a lot of fun with this. We go now to the Islanders' second-round pick, and that is right now Daniil Prokhorov. And I'll say this, Prokhorov is not getting a lot of attention because the Islanders had 3 picks in the first round. So all of a sudden, usually your second round pick's getting a lot of attention. Prokhorov is the 4th player the Islanders picked in the draft, and they had the first overall pick. So he's not getting a lot of attention, but we'll tell you maybe why he should. First of all, he's already at the age of 18, 6'5", 209 pounds. Now he played in a big junior league in Russia, scored 20 goals and 27 points in 43 games this year. And, he was listed as a first-round pick by many scouting organizations, including The Athletic, and the Islanders managed to grab him at 42. Scouts think he is physical. He's going to hit people, and he's got a heavy shot. And he is a power forward. He is physical, according to elite prospects. And I'll tell you, that is something that fits Patrick Waugh's system very well. It fits Matthew Darsh's description of wanting this team to forecheck, to be more difficult to play against. He is a hitter. He is playing with a chip on his shoulder, and he can also get in front of the net and play kind of a similar role to what Anders Lee tends to play, as Lee is getting older and going to be probably not back next year or playing a smaller role on the ice if they do bring him back. I could see in a few years Prokhorov coming in and being that unmovable guy in front of the net. He's probably a middle six forward who can give you, good, not great, but decent, 20, 25 goals a year. Could you see Eklund and Prokhorov on a line together? That would be a very impressive thing. He's probably 2, maybe 3 years away from joining the Islanders, but I really like his potential, and he's a player who the New York Islanders can definitely use. A guy who fits that description is just right up the Islanders' alley. So I just think it's a good pick who is going to have an impact down the road. He's not the fastest skater in the world, but he moves well for a big guy, and he will generate chances. He'll go to the dirty areas, and that's what you want from a big guy like that. So I am bullish on Prokhorov's potential moving forward. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. Thursday was, the 69th birthday of former Islanders center Brian Trottier, the Val Marie, Saskatchewan native, a second-round pick of the Islanders in 1974. Also a second-round pick of the Cincinnati Stingers of the WHA, scored 32 goals as a rookie and won the Calder Trophy, had 5 100-point seasons, including 4 in a row from 77-78 to 81-82, scored 50 goals and 129 points in 81-82, and boy, 29 points in 3 straight playoff years when the Islanders won Stanley Cups, won the Conn Smythe Trophy in 1980, the Hart Trophy, and the Art Ross Trophy in 79. Just, in my mind, one of the best offensive players in NHL history, and maybe the best overall, all-around player in Islanders history. We go back and look at one of his better games as an Islander. I'm not going to go to the big game he had against the Rangers, the 9-point game, because we did that last year. But April 8th, 1981, the preliminary round of the playoffs, first game, Islanders hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs in this one. And Yuri Shra is the goalie for Toronto. Billy Smith, the goalie for the Islanders. And in this game, the Islanders dominate in large part due to Brian Trottier. In the second period, with the Islanders up 2-1, he sets up Mike Bossy on the power play. That makes it 3-1. Less than a minute later, Trottier scores an unassisted goal to make it 4-1. He then scores less than 2 minutes after that on the power play from Stefan Pearson and Mike Bossy to make it 5-1. He sets up in the third period, Mike Bossy sets up Bob Bourne in the third period as well. And the Islanders go on to crush Toronto by a score of 9-2 in this game. Brian Trottier, 2 goals, 3 assists. That's a 5-point playoff game. He scored on both of his shots, and he was a +3 in this game. Islanders, of course, went on to sweep the series in 3 straight, winning 9-2, 5-1, and 6-1. Brian Trottier, the best all-around forward in Islanders history, in my opinion. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off-season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email. LockedOnIslanders@gmail.com is the address. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. And it's, always great to talk Islanders hockey with you anytime. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout this off season. And we have a great community here. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for your contributions and for sharing my love of Islanders hockey. Everydayers, we are back on Monday. We'll have the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. Still waiting on Maxim Siplikov, whether they'll make a deal with him. We will get into the first round. We have 3 more Islander players to discuss as far as the scouting reports are concerned. So make sure you join us for that. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.